analyzing interpersonal relationship. In this video, we're trying to cover all these topics. If we talk about the objective of this unit, after going through this unit, we should be able to appreciate the need for interpersonal competence, to know how the self-concept operates and is protected, or to understand how interpersonal needs, orientations, and attractions affect behavior, learn how interpersonal relationship is created, developed, and maintained, and to develop a set of interpersonal skills. If we talk about what is interpersonal relationship, most of our daily time is spent in some sort of interpersonal situations rather than all by yourself or being just a member of a large group. Most of your daily experiences involves interaction with other human beings. Some such experiences have become quite joyful, resulting in relationships which are flourished over time. Some experiences have hurt you, upset you, resulting in relationships which have remained stagnant or have risen or have been abundant. Understanding how and why these have happened to you, which helps you to develop and improve your relationship with others. In service industry like tourism is a kind of exercise is essential in order to improve your interpersonal relationships. Your interpersonal competence refers to the degree to which you are accurately aware of your impact on others and the impact of others on you. In fact, it is your ability to engage in any mutually helpful relationship. It enables you to achieve your personal goals as well as task goals in the other organization where you are a member. What are the effects of your interpersonal competence on your managerial behavior? Interpersonally, incompetent manager creates an organizational environment in which members act very defensively to protect their own interests. Since everybody acts defensively in the organization, where roles and relationships are basically interdependent. Either the personal goals of the member nor the task goals can be fully realized. Problems are not confronted and are kept hidden from each other for fear they exploring problems which only aggravate the situation. It is in the course time issues which are avoided and swept under the rug assume gigantic proportions and overwhelm the member. On the other hand, interpersonally competent manager also their subordinate to change their view and to question the organization norms, policies, rules, and objectives. When these kinds of behavior are tolerated, people are likely to discover problems and commit themselves to their solution. In such situations, the organizational effectiveness increases. Your role in the organization can be viewed as a central role, surrounded by at least three other types of role, that is, supervisor, colleague, and subordinates. Besides these three types of roles, you may have to interact with lot of other people of different positions, customers, consumers, suppliers, or the people from regular agencies like general public sector. Interaction with different interest groups demand different types of specific skills and competencies. Possessions and understanding of these skills may not guarantee successful human relations, but it can increase your interpersonal sensitivity and help you to take appropriate action to improve relationship. But remember, any attempt to improve interpersonal competence must begin with the knowing oneself more accurately. Analyzing interpersonal relationship involves examine the dynamics, interactions, and the patterns between individuals or groups. What happened? There are some key aspects that are considered when conducting such analysis. First one is communication patterns. Communication is a fundamental in relationships. Analyze how informations, feelings, and thoughts are exchanged. Look at the frequency, clarity, and effectiveness of communication. Second is conflict resolution. How do individuals or group handle disagreements and conflicts? Analyze the strategies used, such as compromise, avoidance, and assertiveness. Look for the pattern in conflict resolution or escalation. Third is power dynamics. Relationship often involves power dynamics that influence decision making and interaction. Analyze who hold power, how is it's exercised, and its impact on relationship. Next is about trust and trust are crucial for a healthy relationship, as we all know. Analyze how trust is built and maintained, the level of emotion closeness, and factors influencing vulnerability. Roles and expectations. Roles and expectations defines how individuals or groups perceive their responsibilities and obligations. Analyze whether roles are clearly defined, how they evolve, and if there are mismatches in expectations. As to know this, it's very important in the beginning only. Emotional expressions. Emotional expressions varies among individuals and cultures. Analyze how emotions like affection, empathy, and support are expressed and perceived within the interactions. Next is about developmental change. This aspect in relationships evolves over a time. Analyze how they develop, grow, or decline. Look at the life transitions and external events that impacts relationship dynamics. Patterns of interaction. Identify recurring patterns in behavior such as dependency, independence, and codependency. Analyze how these patterns contribute the relationship stability or change. External influence. Consider external factors like family, friend, work, and society. Analyze how these influences impact the relationship and its dynamics. When conducting an analysis, it is important to gather information through observation, interviews, and possible surveys, depending on the context. Analyzing interpersonal relationship can provide insight to strengths, area for improvement, and potential sources of conflicts or harmony. It is when a strong bond between two or more peoples refers to interpersonal relationships. Attraction between individuals bring them close to each other and eventually results in a strong interpersonal relationship. Interpersonal relations can be better managed through the understanding of the concept of transactional analysis, understanding life positions, stalking and the jury windows. Transactional analysis aims at improving the communication and interpersonal relationship between the individuals, which is a proven method that helps two persons communicate and behave on the job in a mature manner by understanding each other, motivates by entering into complementary transactions. Transaction analysis is developed by Eric Burnett. Basic transactional analysis has three ego stages in individual personality. That is, the parent ego, the adult ego, and the child ego. These egos state having nothing to do with chronological age of the individual, but refers to the psychological age which is representing in one's behavior and interaction with others. As Burnett states, although we cannot directly observe these ego states, we can observe behavior and from these interfer which of three egos stated in operating at the moment. Parent ego states an individual stands to behave more in the nature of a parent by allowing always dictating the rights and the wrong behavior. which can be of two kinds: the nurturing parent and critical parent. Adult ego states evokes behavior that could be described simply as logical, reasonable, and rational or unemotional. Childhood ego stated state is association with behavior that appears when a person is responding emotionally, encompassing the natural impulses and attitudes learned from a child experiences. A concept of life positions. But the important part of interpersonal relationship as a way of understanding individual behaviors in the organization is another significant tool of enhancing interpersonal understanding and appreciating each other's behavior in more objective manner by identifying oneself or by identifying the self-worth and the worth of others. Now, in our second slide, we'll discuss the understanding of the determinants of interpersonal behavior. In order to perfect yourself in interpersonal behavior, you have to understand the determinants in this regard. That is, first one is self-concept. Each person has an attitude towards himself and herself. This attitude comprises the self or self-concept. That is, what am I? The self-concept has three aspects, that is, beliefs, feelings, and behavior. The beliefs component represents the content of the self. This is illustrated by such thoughts as I am intelligent, sincere, or can be said I am overweighted, etc. And the feeling components about one's self is reflected in feelings of self-worth or in general as I am okay, I am not okay, I am feeling upset, etc. Finally, the behavior component is the tendency to act towards oneself in an self deprecating or self enhancing manner. Your self concept is a reflection of your past experiences with other persons and includes characteristics which distinguish you from others. Once your self concept is established and specific patterns of behavior are adapted, it tends to resist change. This resistance to change also gives you a degree of stability and prevents you from regarding yourself as worthless at one moment and worthy at the next. As your activities are organized and or else we can say integrated in relationship to your self-concept, you can expect to develop a relatively consistent lifestyle. Also, you achieve a special or a stable interpersonal environment by maintaining a consistent relationship between your self concept and your beliefs. How? And about how others behave and feel towards you. With regard to your self concept, in order to maintain your interpersonal environment and to maximize harmony, you actively use certain mechanisms to establish interaction. That is through misperception. When the actual expectation of others are not in agreement with your self-concept or behavior, you may simply misperceive how others see you. That is, you want to say something else and you would feel that they are taking it in the wrong way or they are perceiving your thoughts or views in another sense. Secondly, selective interaction. You may choose to interact with those persons with whom you can most readily establish an agreement state. It is selective evaluation of other persons. You may maximize harmony by favorably evaluating those who behave agreeably towards you and disevaluates to those who do not. Lastly, by response evocation. You intentionally and unintentionally behave in a way that result in others behaving towards you in a congruent fashion. A person in interaction controls the cues provided to other to ensure that he or she will categorize in certain ways and not in any unexpected way. The mechanism we have discussed are some of the means used by any person to protect one's self-concept and maintain an interpersonal environment and relationship. In this interpersonal needs, what do you want from me? People need people, but for what? Skirts maintain that there are three interpersonal needs: inclusion, control, affection, that cause one to establish and maintain relations with others. These needs are defined as follows: inclusion, the need for interaction and association. Okay? Control, the need for control and power. Affection, the need for love and affection. However, individual differs in the strength of their interpersonal needs. For each interpersonal needs, there are two behavior aspects: expressed and want. Expressed behavior is a behavior that we initiate towards others, whereas wanted behavior is a behavior when we want or prefer from others towards us. That is compatibility. And in this, it is a property of a relationship between two or more persons that leads to a mutual satisfaction of interpersonal needs and harmonious coexistence. If what is wanted and what is expressed is equal from both interacting persons, then mutual needs are satisfied. For example, those who wish to dominate and control activities work well with those who wanted to be controlled and or directed. However, if both parties want to dominate, some degree of conflict is surely expected. Whenever you compare these interpersonal needs with self-concept, you will find the need for inclusion is to feel that the self is significant and worthwhile. For control, the need is to feel oneself as a competent and responsible person. For affection, the need is to feel that self is a lovable person. And the next is interpersonal orientations. This, how do you influence me? Individual vary greatly in how they relate to and influence others. Three basic types of persons have been identified: the throw battler, the friendly helper, and the objective thinker. These three styles and associated behaviors are outlined in the following chart. That is, the interpersonal orientation are shown in terms of extreme, but they are typically description of familiar behaviors. Many people are more oriented to one style and another and feel more comfortable with its associated behaviors. While one's style is related to his and her personal needs and self concept, a style can be overdone or distorted. Each style reflects a behavior that, in varying degrees, is ineffective in some situations. The tough battler would relate better to others if he or she was more sensitive to others, could accept his or her own inevitable dependence on others, and recognize that some situations will not yield to pressure. Secondly, it's about the friendly helper. Would be more satisfied if he or she could stand up for his or her own interest and face conflicts. Likewise, the objective thinkers could relate to others more effectively if he or she was more aware and accepting to his and her own feeling to those of others. One does not have to assume that his or her behavior is fixed or impossible to control. In the next slide, we are discussing the interpersonal attraction. Why do we like each other? You are not passive in your interpersonal interactions with others, but to seek the structure like relationship. You will choose to interact with others with whom you can most readily establish a harmonious relationship. For example, if you regard yourself as very intelligent, you will interact with others who respect your intelligence and allow you to use it. By choosing such persons as friends, an important and durable source of harmonious interaction is created. So, remember, people interact more frequently with those who are perceived as conforming their self concept to a greatest extent. The greater the importance and common consequences of an object for two people, the greater the attraction between both the persons. An object may refer to any focus of perception, including physical object, symbols, and other personal concepts, or to one own concept. The attraction of A towards B is affected by the similarities between A's attitude towards X and his or her perception of B's attitude towards X. Moreover, A's known own's attitude towards X and his or her perception of B's attitude are influenced by the degree to which he or she is attracted to B. For example, let's assume that A, who is attracted to B, discovers a difference between A's and B's attitude towards their common supervisors S. Assume that A likes the supervisors but B does not, and hold many unfavorable views about him. Since A and B is attracted to A and is attracted to B, even while holding divergent views, a strain is created that must be resolved. Return to the statement of balance may take several forms. That is, A shifts in A's perception of B's attitudes may occur. A may decide that he or she was mistaken the attribute to B and the negative attitude towards the supervisor. If B actually does have a negative attitude, this would be a misperception. Or A might change his or her attitude in the direction of B and develops a negative attitude towards his supervisor X. Or maybe the condition where A might try to convince B that B is mistaken about the supervisor's attitude. If B is attracted to A and is also experiencing a strain, B might be susceptible to the person's perception. Or A might restore balance to the relationship by reducing his or her attraction towards B. This action indicates how people seek to validate their attitude by seeking agreements with others. When a group begins to interact and acquire information of others' views and attitudes, bonds and attraction from most strongly between those who hold similar views towards things that are important and relevant to both. As a person, like others who have the same feeling towards him or her, as a person has toward himself or herself. This reinforces one's self concept and facilitates interpersonal relations. After this, there is a topic developing interpersonal relationship. To develop a successful working relationship time takes time. No one cultivates such a relationship with others or with another person without going through the process that is long. The development of a working relationship occurs in the following sequence. That is, the initial contact produces a set of impressions and the attitude in each towards the others. A favorable mutual impressions is needed to develop a long-term relationship. Or a positive impression opens the door to a long-term working relationships. When this occurs, mostly the interacting parties develop a set of mutually agreeableness expectations regarding to their roles, performance, and their relationship. Thirdly, the interacting parties may make continuous attempts to meet each other's expectations. Failure to carry out these psychological contacts will probably terminate the relationship. Lastly, the mutual trust and influence develop as a result of meeting the psychological contracts, and this ensures the continuation of the relationship. In the following subsections, we are going to discuss and brief the four stages of developing interpersonal relationship. That is, through forming first impression, second, developing mutual expectations, third, honoring psychological contracts, and developing the trust and influence. First impression through a maybe inaccurate or lasting impression. This is because they influence the way in which people see subsequent data about the perceived object or person. So, whether or not first impressions are correct, it is important for us to make favorable impression on other people. Initial impressions do not guarantee long-term relationship, but they are essential for entering into enduring relationships with others. Many studies have shown that much of the groundwork for subsequent relationship in other is laid in the very first stage of socialization, and this is very important in service industry. In all frontlines operations, the first impression of customer is vital. The first stage for socialization has a significant implication for those who are looking for jobs. When an organization searches for a new manager, it will probably contact between 10 to 40 potential candidates. Of these, it will probably interview between 3 or 8 people, but only one will be selected for the position. What factors help the employers to narrow down the list? The initial selection is probably based on the substantive qualities such as educational achievements, job experience, and specialization, reference, etc., as described in the resume. But the next selection most likely results from the impressions the candidates making during job interview. Image consultants like J.A. Thompson list the following qualities which help to make a good impression. First is voice. One should maintain composures by being diplomatic and personable. Nervousness disturbs one's voice. Articulation. One should speak naturally, frequently, and use proper language and add deep tone in the voice to create an impression and maturity. Third is conservative dress. Conservative dress in classical style are appropriate for business engagements. For people generally prefer a prudent, optimistic to a pessimist. Positive attitude. Without being naive or optimist, one should show a positive outlook towards life. For people generally preferred a prudent optimist to a pessimist. Knowledgeability. Learning sometimes about the organization is and its products, services, and peoples before an interview demonstrated one's interest. Sixth is thoughtfulness. One should be alert and responsible, yet weigh each question for before responding. A hasty response can be seen as indicative of immaturity or lack of wisdom. Self confidence. In order to make other people have confidence in him or her, the person needs to appear self confidence. An erect posture, head held high, and aggressive tone of voice can help shows self-confidence with requisite humility. Remember that in forming first impression, your non-verbal behavior plays an important role as your verbal behavior. You will appreciate that the body language associated with different ego statements. That is, like nourishing parent, adult, adapted child, and a natural child, play an important part in the process of exchange of positive strokes to each other. Secondly, by developing mutual expectations. In this, when people are mutually impressed, they are more likely to enter a long term relationship. When this happens, they develop a certain expectations about each other. In work organization, managers may accept new employees to be competent, productive, and reliable, loyal, to conform to organizational norms. And new employees, on the other hand, expect their supervisors or superiors to be fair, supportive, and considerate of their needs. Many of these expectations are unwritten and unspoken. People usually do not have more clear ideas about what they expect from other people or from organization, especially at the beginning of the relationship. Initial expectations are usually very general and tend to be unrealistic. Unrealistic expectations often develop because people promise more than they can deliver at this initial stage in order to impress the other party. Parties must go beyond the stages of establishing general expectation in order to determine whether or not the relationship is satisfactory. Unless they work out on more realistic expectations, the relationship superficial and less meaningful. The process of working out mutual expectations involves a series of exchange and adjustment to each other's expectations. It also helps determine the quality or level of customer care in tourism organization. A set of mutual expectation that is worked out and understood by the parties is called psychological contract. It is governed in the relationship than in day-to-day interaction. Although this contract is neither formally stated nor legally binding, it serves as the basis for evaluating the qualities of the relationship. Thirdly, honoring psychological contracts. An effective interpersonal or work relationship cannot develop and be maintained unless the participants are willing to honor their psychological contracts. Each party expects the other to be faithful in the relationship or not to take arbitrary actions. To be honest with him or her, there will be a of course, be times when some of these expectations cannot be fully satisfied. But when this happens, each party must be reassured that the other is acting in good faith. What do people expect from others in working relationship? It is a study on the development of trust, influence, and expectation. J.J. Gabbaro, 1978, he pointed out that executives expected three things from their colleagues: reliable character, personal competence, and good judgment. The character based expectations include integrity, maintaining personal and moral honesty in the relationship, secondly, motive, having a good intention, and acting in good faith, consistency, showing consistency in behavior, that is, having a similar behavior over the time, openness, leveling and being honest with another person, which means to share each other's views without the fear of getting judged. This creation, maintaining confidence. The competence based expectations includes two factors, that is, technical competence, having the ability to perform the assigned task, and second, interpersonal competence, being able to maintain effective interpersonal relationship. And the judgment based expectation includes business senses, that is, making good business judgments, and secondly, interpersonal judgments, making an accurate perceptual judgment of other people. Each of us has minimum acceptable level of satisfaction. In the actual fulfillment of expectation is below that level. The situation will be viewed as a violation of the contract. When this happens, as affected members will send out a signal of dissatisfaction in the form of joking, complaining, or showing anger. If these signals are being received and honored by the other person, the relationship can be restored or the contracts may be renegotiated. Otherwise, the association will be suffer chronic discontent, strife, and alienation, and eventually termination. Lastly, it's about developing trust and influence. In this, we can say that the result of meeting the psychological contracts in an increased level of trust and influence when the parties to the contract are able to meet their mutual expectations. The relationship produces mutual trust and favorable sentiments. The more satisfactory association becomes, the greater the influence the parties have on each other. Since the relationship in fulfilling, the parties will continually rely on it to satisfy their needs. This dependency permits them to exert influence on each other. The increased level of influence changes each party's ability to affect the behavior and thinking of others. When a person is able to influence others, the person becomes more effective in performing the task. The person's effectiveness is especially increased when the task requires a high degree of interaction with other people. For the influential person is capable of enlisting the necessary support and cooperations from others.